Hello to one and all. I'm Vigna Konde, your host for today's session in Auto DJ Expo 2021, and we welcome all exhibitors and visitors. This is the third day of exhibition, and I hope you are well familiar with the digital platform and enjoying the virtual reality. Taking this opportunity, I would like to start today's session, which will be of a newest automotive business. Today's automotive industry acts as a mirror reflecting on the aspiration of both the stakeholders in the automotive industry as well as the governments. So let's welcome today's speaker, Mr. Abhishek Bansal, who is serving as Assistant Manager at Invest India, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. He'll be addressing on investment opportunities in Indian market for automotive sector. So without further delay, over to you, Mr. Abhishek.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank the Crescendo Worldwide team for giving us this opportunity to speak at the event. Before we begin, my name is Abhishek Bansal, and I am a part of the automobile and capital goods team at Invest India under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Before we dive deeper into the automobile sector, the opportunities present and the way forward, I would like to talk about Invest India and the various services offered by us. Invest India is the national investment promotion and facilitation agency under Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. It is a not-for-profit organization, which means all the services we offer are pro bono. At Invest India, we work at three different levels: country, sector, and state. Our country teams work very closely with foreign embassies to make sure investors have ease of doing business in India. Then we have sector teams where I am currently involved, and we work with our investors on various policies. And lastly, we have state teams wherein when an investor has finalized a state, these teams help connect with the local state officials to facilitate investments and expedite approvals. In terms of the services offered, we help our investors at the pre-investment stage, investment execution, and long-term partnership. So at the pre-investment stage, we start with opportunity assessment, policy guidance, and then move on to investment execution, which involves regulatory clearances, site identification. And from a longer term partnership, we help our investors with policy advocacy and any expansion support which might be needed in the future. Now we'll talk about the Indian automotive sector. I'll give an overview of the sector and then dive deeper into some of the numbers, incentives and schemes from a central and a state government point of view. And lastly, we'll talk about some of the R&D, research and development incentives which have been given out by the central government. To begin with, automotive sector in India. India ranks as the first largest market and manufacturer of two-wheelers and three-wheelers. It is the second largest market for buses, the third largest heavy truck manufacturer, the fourth largest market and manufacturer of passenger vehicles, and the seventh largest manufacturer of commercial vehicles. In terms of the key metrics, there are two things I want to point out here. Indian auto sector contributes 7.1% to the nominal GDP and has a 40% share in the global R&D. If we look at the FDIs in the last 20 years, there's been an approximate foreign direct investment of $24.53 billion. And the market size is at $118 billion right now, but that is going to grow exponentially with the help of the production linked incentives, which are going to be notified soon. And I'm going to talk about it in the coming slides as well. We expect the auto market size to be $300 billion by 2026. Diving deeper into the automobile industry in India, the pie chart on the left, we see the biggest segment is two-wheelers, which accounts for 81% of the total units sold, followed by passenger cars, which accounts for 13% of the total units sold. In the next 4-5 years, we expect a shift due to rising incomes of the middle class, and the passenger car share will increase from 13% to 18%, and the two-wheeler share will go down from 81% to 73%. In terms of the automobile sales, again in number of terms of million units, our sales have been steadily increasing. There was a slight drop in the year 2020 owing to the BS6 norms, where consumers were confused and they were waiting until April of 2020 to buy a BS6 compliant vehicle. But by 2026, we see a positive growth with an estimate target of 75.8 million units to be sold. And we see down there the automobile exports. We have seen that has been steadily increasing, and there wasn't a drop in the year 2020 because the cars which are produced in India for export already conform to the international standards. Talking about the automobile components industry in India, OEM supplies account for approximately 51% share of the total turnover, followed by exports, which are at 29.41%. We are seeing an interesting trend here. India, for the longest time, has been a country producing chassis and body. But I'll share a very interesting fact with you. Right now, auto electronics account for 15% of the components which go in any automobile. By 2030, we believe it will be 45% of any automobile coming out of a factory. With that shift, we are seeing a very exponential shift in India producing high-tech components, electronics, drive, transmission, and steering. And we also, if you look at the table above, engine and engine components form a $18 billion market size within auto components. And these are just top 10 countries where India is exporting auto components, which also form 61% of the total exports. Now coming to some of the central government initiatives to drive electric mobility in the country. In 2013, the Indian government laid a roadmap for electric vehicles and what's the vision for it, and then started building onto it. From 2015 to 2019, faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicle schemes, which is FAME 1, was launched with an outlay of $127 million. It was a massive success, supported 280,000 EVs, and saved 50 million liters of fuel. Owing to the success of FAME 1, the Indian government launched FAME 2 from 2019 to 2022 with an outlay of $1.3 billion, where 86% of the funds are allocated for demand incentives, 10% of the funds are allocated for charging infrastructure. And this is again to boost the charging infrastructure and e-vehicles in the country. Now for electric vehicles and automobile industry as a whole, backward integration is very important. And to ensure backward integration between 2019 and 2024, the Indian government under National Mission on Transformative Mobility and Battery Storage has launched two schemes, which is Phased Manufacturing Program for Cell and Battery and Phased Manufacturing Program for EVs, which basically puts a phased roadmap to implement these battery manufacturing plants with an initial focus on large-scale assembly plants, followed by integrated cell manufacturing. The idea is to have indigenous manufacturing of these electric vehicles, wherein the government has also increased custom duties on the import of certain components. Building onto this, the Indian government has already announced production-linked incentives for advanced chemistry cell and production-linked incentives for auto and auto components, which are going to be notified soon. The PLIs for ACC have a $2.5 billion outlay, and it will incentivize large domestic and international players in establishing a competitive ACC battery setup in the country. And PLI for auto and auto components, again, will incentivize these large companies to manufacture in India the high-tech components which are currently being imported in the country. This is going to be a game changer, both from a policy and a demand point of view. Building on to it, recently the budget 2021 was announced, and the government of India announced the voluntary vehicle scrappage policy, where a fitness test will be conducted after 20 years for personal vehicles and 15 years in the case of commercial vehicles. This again will make sure that vehicles on the road are not very old, and this will help drive demand generation in the country. One thing I would like to talk about is the Project Import Scheme, which has been announced to facilitate quick assessment through a simplified process of the projects being taken up in the country, wherein the government gives a concessional rate of customs duty for imported machinery and equipment for the setting up of any project. Companies which are manufacturing high-tech components, they can put in an application to Department of Heavy Industries to get approval for this. And a lot of global companies are already, taking advantage of this. From an export incentive point of view, there are a lot of schemes which can help global companies to be competitive in India. First of these schemes is the duty drawback scheme, wherein companies can claim a refund of duty of customs and central excise which are charged on imported and indigenous materials used in the manufacture of exported goods. Second, we have export promotion for capital goods, where companies can import capital goods at zero duty, subject to an export obligation of six times the duty saved and has to be fulfilled in 6 years. Third, we have advanced authorization, which allows companies to import imports duty free, and these inputs will go into the exported product. The only caveat here is that exports should have a minimum value addition of 15%. Lastly, we have rebate of duties and taxes on exported products, which is still in draft stage. It will help exporters by getting a refund of all hidden taxes, like taxes on fuel used for transportation of export products or duties levied on electricity used for manufacturing of these exported products. Lastly, I would like to talk about the custom bonded warehouse, where companies can defer their duties on capital goods and imported inputs. So companies can set up a bonded manufacturing warehouse and they can import raw materials for products which are exported out of the country. There won't be any duty which will be paid. For products where they're sold to the domestic market, companies can pay duties on it, and the duties will basically be deferred. The chart below here shows the entire process on how the flow of goods will take place. I would also like to talk about the research and development incentives, which are, being announced in the country. Department of Science and Technology under the central government has announced R&D incentives which allow 100% waiver on taxes on revenue and capital expenditure on R&D. This will help companies set up R&D bases in the country, integrated with their manufacturing plants, and be competitive at a global level. Some of the numbers below already show that there is an exponential increase not only in the R&D centers, but also in the R&D market and R&D spending. These are, again, some of the key manufacturing zones and incentives in the country from an auto point of view. I would like to talk about one zone here, which is Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh. To give you an idea, Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh, they offer a capital subsidy between 6 to 12% based on the manufacturing zone, based on the size of the company. And we see some of the biggest players like Tata, Denso, Ford India, Suzuki, MG Motors. They already have a base in these states. Similarly, we have a lot of similar incentives, in-depth information on the support which can be provided for each of these states. And Invest India can also support the companies set up their manufacturing facilities in the country. With this, I would like to end my presentation. I can be reached at the email address and phone number here if there are any questions. I would like to thank Crescendo Worldwide for giving us this opportunity to be a speaker at this event. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Good luck to the exhibitors, visitors, and the Crescendo Worldwide team. Thank you.